What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of the Blue River Bow Hunting Podcast. I have a really cool guest with me this week that has 40 plus years experience in the outdoors. And here he is, Jim Carbaugh. How's it going, buddy?
It's going really good. I'm glad to be here, Brett. Appreciate the invite, man. I saw that on Twitter and I thought, well, what the heck? I'll just tell you I'll do it. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I always appreciate that. And Twitter is like, there's so many people on Twitter that are so honest. Like, I'd like to put on there, hey, who wants to jump on the podcast this week? Oh, somebody always on Twitter always answers me, hey, let's do it. I did one with Jason Bird last weekend from Utah and actually had some technical difficulties, and it actually didn't even get posted. Incredible conversation. I'm going to have him back on soon because it's really a great conversation that I don't know much about out west hunting. I'm from a Midwestern cornfield somewhere. I don't know nothing about no mountains, so it's a cool conversation,
Yeah. That's an interesting hunt. I want to see that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I'll ever really get to go out west, but it would be something really cool. I would just like to go out there and film somebody if I could. I'm sure I'd have to hit the treadmill a little bit before going out there, but
Everything I've been told, if you're going to hunt out west, years ago I thought about doing an elk hunt, and they told me you better take a year and get in shape.
Yeah, I've been told the same thing.
I've been to Colorado and Wyoming on visits, and been to the Grand Tetons and stuff. And I can tell you, there's a definite difference in altitude with your breath and all that stuff. But yeah, I've been told by guys who've been elk hunting that, man, you better be in shape because the guides out there ain't going to take mercy on you, man.
No, you paid money to come out there. Maybe not. Maybe you're doing a public land hunt or something.
Yeah.
But how did you get started in the outdoors? What got you outdoors?
I think it's one of those things as a kid. Hey, I'm an old man, right? We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't,
right.
We didn't have all that stuff. We didn't mean, hey, we had Pong as a video, and that wasn't very fun. You figured that one out in 10 minutes. But no, I was just always outdoors. I was lucky to grow up in a small town in South Central Pennsylvania. My school that I grew up in, the school I went to, we actually had an environmental center. The school was smart enough to buy a 130-acre farm that has spring-fed pond, and they actually raise trout there that gets pulled out, stocked throughout the state and the whole thing. So in school, we were always exposed to that stuff. And it's just something I gravitated to. I loved it, man. I just thought it was cool. I mean, as a kid, I'd trap rabbits in a live trap, and then I'd keep them, and then they'd have babies, and mom and dad said get rid of them, and you just populated the whole neighborhood with rabbits, and people didn't like you, and that's okay.
That's kind of cool you say that, because I took a class it was been my senior year of high school. I only went to school half day. I had enough credits to pretty much be done, and I got to take a class called Natural Resources Management. I went to a class, and it was all about everything outdoors. I mean, we had a lot of fun in the class. A lot of DNR officers would come in and teach us a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff I already had taken for the most part, but we got to ride their snowmobiles, and we did fishing, and we actually there was parts of our class where all we had to do was go sit in the woods in the property that they had, and I mean, we saw deer, we saw all kinds of stuff, and it's kind of cool that you say that, because I don't think that's something that they really have in these schools anymore.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I actually was in the educational field and taught environmental science, and I actually had the opportunity to come back to my home school and teach and work with the environmental teacher there. And we started a thing called the Earth Keepers for the 5th and 6th and 7th graders. And that was one of the things the kids had to do. We'd take them out in the woods of this farm, and we just sit them down and say, look, you got to take a little log book. You got to take a little diary and just write down what you're hearing, the sounds and all that kind of stuff as little kids. And because sometimes you don't get that, to this day, some of the best times are when you wake up, when you're in a tree stand and the sun's coming up, and I may not see something all day, but man, just to sit out in nature and see it. You love watching squirrels fall out of trees, and they bounce. I haven't got it, because if I fell that far down, I'm dead. I'm looking and think, if I fall 17 feet out of this tree stand, they're coming for me in an ambulance and a helicopter. This squirrel just came down 20 feet. He's bouncing around. But I think kids need that outdoor, and I think that the youth programs are huge in that it doesn't have to be about hunting. I think that's a neat thing is I got into it just looking at wildlife, with the fishing and the deer and stuff, and we did the same thing. It was just and that drew me into college when I went, studied biology and got into that field.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what made you start? Sorry, I didn't really introduce
No, that's all
that.
right.
Jim runs the Outdoor Answers. It's been going on for quite some time. Tell us how that all started.
Well, ultimately, as I told you, I was in education, and I'm actually was a head football coach and an avid hunter, obviously. And no knock, I'm watching all these outdoor shows, and it's really great to sit down and watch a half-hour show, watch some guy kill a big 140 class, 160 class buck, and he's all great and everything. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, maybe I do, maybe I don't have the opportunity to get something like that, but you know, what are you using for equipment? What are you using for scent attractant? What's the topographical area look like? What's going on here? You don't just walk out in the woods and one shows up, just like fishing. What bait? You can't be a fisherman and someone says, well, they're just pulling fish in left and right. Well, what lure are you using, man? I mean, what's going on? So I was riding home and I called a buddy of mine that had a videography company and video production company, and I just said, hey, I said, Chris. I said, I'd like to do something that's for the average guy. Let's do something that like shows people how to hunt. What is it to hunt? How do you make a mock scrape? How do you use a slip bobber? I mean,
Right.
how do you fly fish and use it down and across and across and down and double flies? And there's just things that people, unless you're lucky enough to get a hold of a mentor that shows you those things, or you go sit down and read a book. But of course now YouTube, we started back in 2001. Now you go out on YouTube and there's all kinds of information. I mean, I think that's where everybody goes anymore. Well, how do you do this? And there's all kinds of different. The great part is there's no wrong way. It's the way that best fits you. So anyway, we started it that way, and he was lucky enough to have some connections, and we ended up becoming a featured program with a affiliate out of Harrisburg, PA, and then we ended up being an affiliate out of York, PA, a couple years later, and that went on for about 8 years, and it kind of had a great opportunity. The Great Outdoor Show up in Harrisburg, PA. I got to be the grand marshal, opened the place up one time, cut the ribbon, but it was kind of a really neat thing to do. Production's kind of slid off a little bit because I've gotten more into hunting and
Right.
video.
What kind of feedback did you get from doing those shows on the local news?
Oh, we got a lot of feedback, a lot of good feedback. Of course, there was always the expert who would tell me that I did something wrong. My elbow
Right.
wasn't right when I was fly fishing, or I never seen a scrape look like that.
Right.
Those kind of things, and you're going to always have that. But we had a lot of great feedback, and ultimately it came down to the last year we were in there. I think it was 2010 on Fox 43 out of York. Is basically the change in programming. And different focus and all that kind of stuff, and advertising and everything. I learned a lot about the TV industry that I don't really want to know about.
Yeah,
You know,
I've heard stories. There's a podcast I listened to called The Working Class Bow Hunter, and they had Ted Nugent on one time, and he was telling stories about the executives from like the Outdoor Channel and the Sportsman Channel and stuff, trying to cut out bits and pieces of the stuff that he filmed, like gutting a deer or just a kill shot or blood, and he wouldn't have it. He threw an absolute fit. So I can only imagine what kind of scenarios that you probably had to play out with some of that
oh,
stuff.
we got invited to get on the My Outdoor TV, which was out of Tennessee. Um, we used to upload our episodes and put them on there, and all the fishing episodes got. I won't name the company, but all the fishing episodes got uh, sponsored by a certain company. They'd have a little commercial before our episode, and all the hunting ones got by another company. I
Hmm.
didn't see a dime. I
Right.
was supposed to just be happy for that. And then I got a phone call one time. You talk about podcast. I got a phone call one time. I wanted to know if I wanted to be on the radio. I said, yeah, what's going on? Oh, well, we saw your video on tree stand safety on the safety harness. Yeah, well, they're showing that all over the state of X. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, really? It's nice
That's
to know.
crazy that you never like got anything out of that.
Yeah, it just and it was all in the agreement. It was uploaded, and that, of course, that was their way of making a stream. And maybe I shouldn't have said who they were, but I mean, I think they're still around. That's the way. That's the way they're. And it was in our agreement and so forth. But it's one of those things. Again, as my videographer and stuff, and it's kind of like got to a point for him that he has his own business,
Hmm.
and we're producing these things. And if anybody knows anything about producing that kind of stuff, it was a 1 minute to 1.5 minute vignette. Well, there probably was about 20 minutes worth of footage. Then you got editing time. then you got cut and paste, and you got all that stuff to make that 1 minute. And he was fantastic. So I would say uh, his editing skills and stuff, he made me look good. I mean, the content, I wrote all the content, wrote the scripts. He filmed, edited. It was a good combo. But
Yeah, I watched several of those on YouTube earlier when you had sent me the link, and those were really informative videos that if somebody didn't have no clue, like I fish with some buddies and stuff, but like
right,
I'm not
right.
big into fishing. And the way you were talking about how to do the spinner baits and how to
Hmm.
how to throw them a certain way to get them to bounce off landscaping and stuff like that. That's I was learning shit because I don't know much about fishing, buddy. Like
No,
I've been around it, but I haven't been around it like nothing like that.
right, right, right. So that was the purpose, because a lot of people don't know, what a lot of guys go out and buy a big old uh, box of tackle and stuff for fishing, and you don't really know what, some are made to bounce off the ground. My kids were always this. I want to use the brightest bait in the world. Well, that doesn't mean it's going to be, hard to believe that sometimes in stained water you use dark bait. I mean,
Right.
but they think, oh, we'll just use big, what's the stuff to glow green, Dad? Okay, cool.
You
You're
know,
not going to catch anything.
we were talking a little bit of before the show about the youth hunting stuff that we had done here recently, talking about fishing. We're sitting in the garage one night, me and the neighbor and his kids, and my kid and the wives were out there just drinking beer, watching football or fights on TV or something, and the kid noticed my tackle box over there. He goes, "What do you got?" He's big into fishing. "What do you
Right.
got in there?" I said, "Here, I'll tell you what." I pulled out. I gave him every single lure, every plastic that I had. I had hooks. I had stick. I mean, I had all kinds of stuff. I said, "Take all of it, buddy. You are more into this than I am. Have fun with it." And they send me pictures of them catching big old fish. I'm like, "That's awesome, man."
I take a fishing trip twice a year up to upstate PA, right on the border of New York and Pennsylvania, on the Susquehanna River. And I don't even take anything, because that guy has all his fishing rods set up. He knows what the fish are biting, and I use his spinner rods and stuff, and I catch all kinds of crap, because it
Is
just
that
don't.
is that on a charter
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's a guide.
guide? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's been doing it for, oh man, 50 years or so. He just wrote a book. Um, yeah, but why take all my stuff up there and try to dig through and figure it out? He's got 6 rods set up, and he said, here's this, try it. And you start catching stuff. That's the way you do it.
We did a charter trip for my buddy's bachelor party on the Detroit River, jigging for walleye,
Oh, there you go.
and it was awesome, unbelievable experience. I wish it would have been a tad bit warmer, but that's something that you run into sometimes. We had
Yeah,
just
well,
left Missouri turkey hunting. It was kind of like a back-to-back thing. We went to Missouri turkey hunting. We came back. We went walleye fishing, and I was used to the 60, 70-degree days turkey hunting in Missouri, and I go up in the rivers of Michigan, and it's like 30 degrees. I'm like, whew, boys, it's cold out here. You warmed up.
Michigan's a cold place to fish.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
in almost May. It was April, almost May, and it
What?
was, I mean,
Yeah.
freezing.
Well, those lakes up there are almost like, well, they are. They're like oceans. They're so daggone big, man. That's
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This was the Detroit River. It was just south of Detroit, and I guess they say one of the best places to walleye fish in the country. I
Oh,
guess, and
wow,
it was
cool.
unbelievable. I mean, we caught I don't know, upwards of 20 fish or so, and we only fished for 6 hours or whatever it was. And then
Yeah.
this past Labor Day, we were supposed to do a fishing trip on Lake Michigan, salmon fishing, I believe is what it was. It was a bunch of other things, I think, steelhead and some other stuff, but it ended up getting canceled because the waves were so big out on the lake, so I never
Hey,
got to experience that either.
it's like I said, it's like an ocean, man.
Yeah, it looks like
Huge.
it.
Yep. Yep.
So when we talk about this, what drove you to do the content, even if it's just a 1 minute clip on the TV or on YouTube or whatever? What drove you to want to do that?
Well, it's wanting to, it was wanting to share the experience of the outdoors, but also the knowledge of the outdoors. And not that I had all the answers. They were things that I've learned, and you learn this. I mean, everybody learns this. There's some stuff.
Right.
I had an old guy tell me one time that the only way you were ever going to shoot a deer was take some Stroh's beer up in the woods, sprinkle, open a can and pour it around your tree, and that's the tree you sit down, and that deer's going to come right in. And I realized he was taking a 6-pack of beer. He never shot anything. He was just getting drunk, you know. So, but I just think it was interesting to share some of those things. And of course, you whittle those things out and say, what are some things that are actually useful? Because again, you hear all these things, and what is it I really can? And it's one of those things that I think we need to share more of that in the outdoors. Sometimes we hold these things to big secrets. It's not a competition.
Right.
It really isn't. Never has been for me. I've been on many hunting trips, and my friends have gotten things. I haven't gotten anything, or I've chosen not to take a shot because that wasn't the deer I felt that I wanted to take, or I didn't think it was mature enough. Just as excited for it then, and that's the other thing too is when someone harvests something, whether I do, you always reflect. What was the deer doing? What was the conditions around there? Like if I go make a mock scrape, I want to know, was he coming into that mock scrape? Because if he wasn't, and I've done that before, and I'm sure people have too. There's times I've used certain scents, and I've had doe come down, and boy, they get wind of that, and all of a sudden they're turned around and going backwards. Well, that's the wrong scent for the day. That's
Right.
that's not for what it doesn't mean it's bad scent. I just
That's
that's
just
just
something
sending
you're
no
going to
alarm.
learn through
Right.
experience.
So it was one of those things. I just wanted to share that knowledge. And the hope was also that, again, through some of the comments, some people would come back and they would say, hey, that was really cool, but here's some things I've done, and actually prompted me to do, send them an email and say, well, talk to me about that, and then do an episode on that.
Right.
So that's part of what it was. It was just, it was that common guy. How do we hunt?
Right. And like you were saying, with the bigger TV programs, they push a lot of products. They don't necessarily want to teach you certain lessons because they think they're going to have one up on their competition, like somebody doesn't already have figured out how we shoot deer. But they got to think there's some kind of secret to it or something. I mean, there is, but there isn't. And guys like us, we'll talk about our experiences and how did you go wrong? What did you do? Explain what you did right, and paying out for other people that may not even know, might be their first year hunting.
Absolutely. And you know what? The only thing you don't give away as a hunter is where you hunt, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not giving coordinates to my tree stand.
and here, that's the thing too. I learned just because it worked for somebody else. I mean, there's some guys that have certain calls and they work for them. And I'm gonna be quite honest. I've never had. The only time I've ever had any luck, I shouldn't say never. The only time I've ever had any luck with rattling is with some really, really young deer.
Yep. Same.
When I've rattled, when there's been some big deer around within range and stuff, it seems to walk them away. So you know what? Right. I don't even take it with me anymore because I'm not going to scare away the big bucks. And what I've learned over time and talking to people, a lot of people believe that bigger buck, if he's not in the mood, he's kind of like, you know what? There's something going on down there, and I don't even want a piece of that. So I'm out of here. Well, then guess what? I don't even want to be tempted to do it. And I'm sure people will say like, "Well, you're dumb. You should be doing that." Well, I'm not.
Like you said, I've never had really much luck with the rattling. I think I've only rattled in like 2 deer ever, and I've talked about this on my show before. There's like a 7 to 10 day window where that's even in my bag of a rattle bag or even a grunt tube. Sometimes I don't take that necessarily all the time, and I was in Wisconsin last year, the last week of October. Did a trip up there, and my last morning there, I heard a lot of vocalization from these deer. I heard a couple bucks grunt as they were pushing some does into this cut cornfield. So later that afternoon, I saw this buck down in the bottom, and I thought, man, he's a good 400, 500 yards away from me. There's probably no way he's going to hear this, but I'm going to try it anyways because I've never really tried it. When there's a buck that I would shoot, I would never really go for that kind of thing. Right. So I grunt. What's he do? He turns up, looks at me, beelined it straight to me. He got up to about 50 yards. I didn't make the shot. He went into some bedding. But later on, I shot him 3 hours later because he came right back out of that bedding and walked right past the tree I was sitting in. So I wouldn't say that I grunted him in and killed him, but I grunted him into my area and killed him later, which I've never really had any success with the calling. Here in Indiana, it's mostly open ground that we're hunting. We have small tracts of land. That something like that might work out for you in a bigger block of woods, maybe with a low doe population or something like that, but I've never really had any luck with it either.
Well, yeah, the rattling. I mean, the grunting. I've actually, I've used it to stop bucks. I've had last year. Actually, the deer I harvested last year, he was on a pretty good trot, and he snuck in from my right, coming to my left behind me, and I saw him, and he had his beeline on 2 doe that were further down. So I just gave out a grunt on a great call, and he stopped, and he never looked left, never looked right, kept looking straight ahead. And the great part about that one is I got it on video.
That's awesome.
Buddy had just for my birthday, he got me what's the camera Tacticam. He got me that
Tacticam.
thing, and I got it on video, man. And that was, I mean, other than you can hear me breathing real heavy.
Right. You can hear me breathing heavy on my camera
Everybody
quite a
making
bit.
fun of me, going like, "Oh man, you guys." Just trying to keep I'm trying to keep things steady, but yeah, it was. But you can see him. He just stopped. He wasn't looking left or right, and had I not done that, he'd have kept right on going. So yeah,
That's awesome. And I actually have a grunt tube. I can't remember if it was my dad or my uncle that gave it to me, but I have this old school looking grunt call that's probably from the late 80s, early 90s, and I will never give that thing up. I
there you
love the
go.
sound and the volume that I can get with it. Like obviously you're not going to get loud with it, but I
Right,
just love the
right,
pitch
right,
that it,
right.
you know, it's like having a good duck call. You just don't want to go do anything else once you find that perfect
Yeah,
pitch that you like.
yep. And it
Is that
worked.
something that you get into there in PA or anywhere? Some duck
You
hunting?
know, don't do a whole lot of waterfowl hunting here. When I take my trips down to Kentucky, everyone just raves and raves and raves about duck hunting. I've never done it. I've done upland hunting, uh, uh, done grouse, pheasant, chucker,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff, working
Right.
the dogs. But haven't got into any duck hunting. People tell me if you get into it, it's like a disease, man. You're done. You're sold.
Yep, that's kind of how it
Uh,
was for a long time. You get hooked on that sensation because it's a lot different than deer hunting. Deer hunting, I'm worried about the scent, I'm worried about the wind, I'm worried about this, I'm
right,
worried
right.
about that. I can't really talk. In the duck blind, we're all chatting and I would say hooting and hollering, but we're giving each other shit and laughing and oh, here they come, get down. It's just kind of the camaraderie is what I like so much about it. Yes, me and a few buddies, we take it serious when the time comes. Like we don't want to hit it too early because Indiana doesn't really get a good population of birds until you get that really nice. I mean, the freeze basically coming from the north
Right,
and
right.
push them birds down. But we just don't have a huge population of ducks here. I wish we did because we were big into it at one time. But I'll chase these whitetails any day.
Well, I'll tell you, I've seen some pictures of some people's blinds and how they have basically a basement in there
Oh
and they're
yeah.
cooking and they got beds and stuff. I'm thinking,
Oh yeah, they're playing cards and cooking breakfast, and they got TVs. They're watching the news and
yeah,
shit.
I get that, right? I
Oh yeah,
get
it'd be
that. I
fun.
understand that. That's good. That's good. But yeah, I never got into that. Never had. I shouldn't say I didn't get into it. I've never had the opportunity. No one's ever taken. Again, it's not a big thing around here to do duck hunting. At least growing up and stuff, it never was.
Right.
Uh,
You touched on it a little bit before, but I kind of want a whole conversation about it a little bit.
sure.
But you were talking about the YouTube, and did you see any money from the YouTube?
No, I never reached anything. You have to go out and look at how many hits I have. And it's funny you say that. I don't know if there's anybody out there can help me out, but I got in
Yeah, I was seeing some of the videos because when you sent me the link, I started
yeah,
watching some of your videos. I'm looking at the views. I'm like, he has like almost 500,000 views on this video. Like
yeah,
that's incredible. But you were probably ahead of the curve.
yes.
Like YouTube is such an oversaturated thing with with people hunting and throwing which there's nothing wrong with having too much to watch. You could watch my stuff and you can watch somebody else's stuff. Everybody's kind of got their own thing going, but I feel like you were ahead of the curve back doing it back then.
We were, and I'll be honest with you. I think we actually. I don't want to say it was just us, but I think there were small pockets doing that. And now you see, it's funny how you see in some of these actually national televised shows, they'll take a 1 minute clip and say, "Hey, we're going to show you how to tie a knot. We're going to do something like this," and it's like thinking, somebody stole an idea there. But yeah, be quite honest with you, when they changed the platform on YouTube, they rolled over. Um, my stuff's all set up in the old editing system, the whole thing, and I cannot get logged in at this
Oh
point in
man.
time. And I have been trying. I've tried to get a hold of people at YouTube. Of course,
Hmm.
everything has got to be online. They send you off to the help center and the whole thing.
Right.
Somebody needs to reset my password so I can get in there.
Absolutely, because I mean, you had a good number of following too. I mean, was it
Yep.
nothing crazy? You had
I
like,
actually just had I just actually had a couple people just subscribe, and I'm thinking, man, I got to get out there and be able to interact with these people.
right.
Um,
I feel like 500,000 views. That's pretty good, and with the modern YouTube with the monetization, I feel like they would probably be pumping a lot of ads into your videos, and you probably make. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're gonna make $1 million,
right, right,
but you
right,
make a
right.
few bucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. I mean, nowadays with the way they do ads, I haven't kept up on that part of it. But I mean, there's ad, every time you go to YouTube, there's always an ad coming here and there. So
Right.
I don't know how that all works, but I've been working on it. Not hard.
Hmm.
I should work harder.
Well, I think it is that you have to have I want to say 1,000 subscribers, and then your videos can be monetized, and it's all about
Yeah.
you get a certain amount of money per 1,000 views or however that works. So if you get 20 cents per 1,000 views, I mean obviously you're not going to make much
Right.
money,
Right.
but
Right.
you
Right.
might you might be able to buy you a new bow or something with it, you know.
Yeah. 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 Well, there's already 4 of those hanging, so I don't know if I need another one.
All right. You talked a little bit about going to school and being a biologist. Give us a little bit of a background on that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I was just, got out of high school and, had a great interest in the outdoors, biology. That was kind of what I focused on, really liked. But then decided to go to college and major in biology, environmental science, wildlife, fisheries. And then, well, actually went to school in Nebraska to do that, and then got out and rolled that into an education career for a while, actually for 33 years, but only taught for 18 of that, and then got into school administration, but kept my toe in the water when it came to that stuff. Would do guest speaking in classes and stuff like that, and got involved in local conservation groups and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just one of those things that I think people have to find things that click, and that clicked with me.
Absolutely.
That came to me easier than math and stuff, and that just science wise, that just just learning about all this. And there was a time where I could walk in the woods and identify every tree, that kind of stuff. So you kind of focus, you get you focus on what you focus on. But it was really rewarding, and I really enjoyed getting kids to get out in the outdoors. We used to take a trip out here in Maryland. To a place called Wallops Island. We'd take a group of kids, go down there, and we'd do studies of marshland and the oceans and all that kind of stuff. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was good stuff. And it just, if you understand, I always felt that if you understand the succession of the forest and the grasslands, and if you understand the habitat of a deer, or what or whatever you're going after, you're going to have a lot easier time tracking that thing down. If you're hunting in the middle of the desert for a whitetail, you may not see one.
Right.
So you gotta look at that way. It's the same with rivers and oceans and ponds and stuff. If you understand that topography underneath and where fish hang out and stuff, it just makes fishing look much easier.
Absolutely. And I wish I would have kind of got into that aspect, because when I took that class in high school, I really enjoyed it. We did a lot of forestry stuff, learned about a lot of the logging, how all that stuff went down and all that. But I actually kind of took a different route on it. I actually have a conservation law enforcement degree. I wanted to be a conservation officer.
Okay. There you go.
And I finished the schooling, and I realized that wasn't quite for me. I enjoyed. I worked for the DNR for like 9 months after school. I was basically a glorified security guard at a state park, kind of trolling some stuff. But I wish I would have went down that route, because the law enforcement thing wasn't really for me.
Well, that's okay, and that's if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't have got into school administration and just stayed in teaching, and maybe moved on into a college level or something. But I don't even know if I'd have done that. But I get to actually, now that I've stepped away from that, I'm actually getting back into that environmental, that kind of thing. And that's a fun thing. And that's kind of what led me up to wanting to go be a Maine guide and all that stuff. I've been going to Maine for years and years, and just love it up there, because it's true wild up there. I mean,
well, that was you're going right into my next question. Let's
Oh,
hear
good.
about it. How did it all come about? What game did you guide? Like, how did it all work out?
Well, how it all worked out is I actually booked a trip to go hunt up in Maine for whitetail, and everyone always tells you that's the ultimate challenge. And I had seen some videos by a guy, Hal Blood, and if you've never watched a video by Hal Blood, you need to watch a video of him. He's a big buck hunter in Maine. He literally will find that one track, and he takes his camera with him, and he'll follow it for miles. He'll spend the night, and he tags some big deer in Maine, and not just in body, but in antlers. Yeah, look up Hal Blood.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
He's fantastic, and you get the Benoit. But I got up there and we hunted whitetail, and I actually. That's a whole long story. That's forever story. But I got a shot at a big whitetail that was on the run, and I thought, man, this is cool, and really liked the whole process, and heard some stories, and was up there during bear season a little bit, and they were using dogs, and that was kind of cool. And of course, went out and did some bait sites and stuff. And I wasn't a guide at that time, so the people that I had up there said, "Well, you can be a Maine guide. You don't have to be from Maine." And I said, well, "What's that all entail?" And they said, "Oh, well, it kind of almost was a challenge. It's like, well, it's one of the toughest tests to take in the country. It's hard to be a Maine guide and the whole thing." Well, that's all you had to say to me. Well,
Right.
we're going to have a conversation. We're going to do that. And of course, I had to know the biology of animals in Maine. You had to take a 300 question test. But the great part about that, when you take that test, and again, I did this in 2005, so I don't know that it's changed. But the very first thing they do is they make you go in and do a map and compass, because if you can't read map and compass and you can't navigate a map they throw out at you and read topographic stuff and triangulate and find one spot, navigate to another spot, and do all this stuff. Then they do a lost person scenario. I want to know how you do all that if you're guiding people. And then from that, they talk to you about canoeing and all this kind of stuff. And I think they've changed some of the certification. But then after that, you go take a 300 question test. But anywhere, if you don't pass the map and compass, it's over. Test's over. Go home. See you in 30 days. Take it again. At least that's the way it was in 2005. So long story short, I took the test, passed it, and became a Maine guide. And the guy that I'd actually had taken a hunting trip with, I went and did some guiding with him. We actually did some video production and stuff that never really hit the TV screen. Mm-hmm. And then some things have happened, through getting busy and things with his business and stuff. And so I really haven't done that in the last 5 years, but it ultimately focused around black bear, okay. The guiding of that. And, a lot of that is more of a conversation with people. I'm not, but guiding bear is really kind of cool. I mean, you are hunting over bait up in Maine, over barrels and stuff, but it still takes, it still takes some skill, not only, from the hunter standpoint, but from the actual placement of where you're putting the baits, and monitor nose and knowing where to put guys in stands, because they're not going to be there every day. Right. You might have one hanging out forever. So, it's an exciting thing. And got to meet some really cool people. And it was, it just was it all started out as a challenge, though. I mean, it was, this is a really tough test. Okay, well, and it was. Don't get me wrong, it was tough.
Now, is that something that you had to stay up there out of so many months out of the year? How'd that work?
No, I mean, well, for the guiding, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't. At the time, I was still had my job in education, so I'd take 2 weeks off and go up. I mean, and part of the reason I really started taking a hit on my time off to go whitetail hunt. My ultimate goal was that once I retire, I could go up there and the season starts in September and goes till the end of October, and just go spend 6 weeks, guiding. But I would guide for 3 or 4 days and then drive home. And from where I'm at and to where I guided was a 12-hour drive. That's kind of and that's not tough to me.
No, that's not bad.
That's a day work. I mean, I hunt in Kentucky. It's a 12-hour drive. You can make that drive in one day. Right. Outside of that, it can get stressful.
I bet, experiencing all kinds of different people and characters that you would meet through something like that would be probably pretty cool. And then I feel like as a guide, you almost have to be somewhat of an outgoing person, because you have to deal with a lot of those different characters. Is there just some people up there that you just like, wow, this guy probably shouldn't even have a weapon in his hand?
Well, there's always that guy,
right?
And there's always that, I'll be honest, there's some people who come up and they actually treat it like a vacation, and they'll spend more time wanting to go out and shoot their guns and drink in the afternoon, then they don't want to get up in the morning and go hunt. And then at the end of the week, they're complaining they haven't seen any bear. And it's like, well, you haven't seen any bear because you've been drinking beer all afternoon and shooting your guns. That's the way it is. You got to know what, that's the other thing. You got to understand why you're going on a hunting trip. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. If you're getting away and you only hunt. I mean, I've been on a hunting trip with people that, it's a 7-day trip, and day 3, they're like, hey, I don't want to go out. I just sat in the stand for 2 days and I haven't seen a buck I want to shoot, so I'm not going out. That's fine. I mean, it's your money, your time. I mean, that's what you want to do. Some people, you can't kill them from the couch. Right. But yeah, you get interesting. It's funny. It really mirrored what I was doing. At the time, I was a principal of a middle school, and in dealing with parents and kids and those conflicts and all those kind of things, it was the same thing when you were guiding. You get one guy that gets a bear and everyone else, and then you got 2 other guys that you can tell they're ticked off because they think you're putting that guy in the best stand and they're not getting a shot. And you start to look at people and say, now think about this. The success of this business is based on the fact that everyone here has a great experience, sees animals, and ultimately gets one. Why would I stick one guy in a spot and not everybody else? Where if I'm putting you someplace, I'm putting you where there's animals.
Right.
I can't control them, and that's the other thing. Is some people come up there with the expectation, like you see on the TV shows.
Right.
No one ever puts in there that these guys sat in a tree stand for 7 days and waited for that big buck to come in on the seventh day.
Right.
At the last 2 hours of hunting, but they only see that TV show for the half hour that shows them getting that. And they're like, we've been out here about this is great. And they don't see that. So these guys, there's guys come up, if it's in day 2 and they haven't gotten something, they're starting to get fired up. Well, there's a reason it's a 7-day trip.
Right. It
It's
takes
the
that
reason
long.
it's a 4-day hunt. And that's the ultimate thing I'd say is when you go on a hunting trip, realize there's, unless you get into a guide service that is really just trying to run people through, it's a mill, and there's people who do that, and they're not
Right.
trying to satisfy the customer. And I've got my own standards. If I go on a hunting trip, I don't want a 20-man operation when it comes to people coming in. I want a 4 to 6, maybe 10 at the most, because that's a lot of stands, that's a lot of hunting, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people make happy, and it's so. But anyway, you got to realize why they're there. They're there to put you in a spot. They want you to be successful.
Right.
But you can't control the game, man. Even though you're putting out donuts and stuff, and rotten meat and everything, it doesn't mean that something's coming in. If they're not around, they're not coming.
So how long were the sits on the bear? Were they all day sits, and then were you sitting with the customer, or did you
No,
drop them
no.
off and come back and get
Well,
them?
unless they requested it, but no. Typically, you're taking people out to their spots, and that's kind of up to the customer. Typically it's a morning hunt. Come get them and take them home, then come back out in the evening. But when you're baiting, there's a lot of times you tell the guys, hey, if you haven't seen anything by 9 o'clock, you might want to sit in. That thing may come in, midday.
Right.
You don't know the travel patterns, and I don't. When I go on my, that's funny you say that, because one of the very first deer hunts I ever went on was in Alabama, and that company's no longer around. And they were a good company, but it was very much a southern hunt.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take you out. We're going to come get you at 10:30. Well, I want to stay out. Nope, you can't. We're going to come get you. And they come get you in from 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock. They had lunch, and they told you there was a pond. You could go fishing. You could go play pool. You could go do that. And I'm like, well, I want to be in the stand. Well, we're not taking you back out till 3 o'clock. And then we're going to put you on a green field. So in the morning you were in the woods, afternoon you were in a green field. So that wasn't the kind of hunt I wanted to be in. If I'm going on a hunt, put me in all day.
I was unfortunate enough to be in something like that. I did Redding Ridge Outfitters in Alma, Wisconsin, Buffalo County, Wisconsin, and it was an all-day sit. They dropped you off in the morning. Obviously, you had the guide's number or a way to get a hold of somebody, and it was like you said, a small operation. There was, I believe, 4 guides altogether, and then the main guy. The main guy took care of cooking and stuff like that, and kind of like the everyday kind of thing where people are coming in and out. He's setting them up in rooms or dealing with this and dealing with that. But it was all day sits, and I've done some all day sits here in Indiana. But sometimes you just got to get down. You got to
absolutely
stretch out and get you a bite to eat or something. But I didn't realize how much I liked it. They even packed a lunch for you, and which I had stuff and snacks and stuff with me anyways. But they dropped me off, and man, I just couldn't. I just had such a good relationship with them at the end of the hunt. I felt like I'd known these guys forever. Like I killed my buck on my last day hunting, and the guys pulled up in the Razor, the side by side to pick me up. He goes, I know you're wanting this, and he tossed me a beer, and he goes, we're celebrating. I'm like, dude, you know me, buddy. That's awesome. I'm jacked up, And then, I tipped them for that because I felt like they were being personable with me, and I appreciated it. I wasn't just another guy coming in there to try to kill a deer. and they don't sit the same stands like 2 days consecutive.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can see they're pulling out all these property maps at night when we're eating good food and having a drink and talking about what's going to happen the next day. And I felt like they were so precise on the attacks that they were doing. Well, we got a north wind tomorrow. I'm not letting you hunt this side of the property. Let's pull up another map. What other properties we got to deal with? It was just so. I felt like it was so precise, and like the guide had been texting me a little bit when I saw that buck come up that I grunted, and I said, "Hey, he went into such and such." He goes, "Keep your eyes on that spot. That buck will come out of there." Sure enough, 3 hours later, here he come back out of there, walked right to me. I had like a 10-yard shot, if that. So it was like shooting fish in the barrel at 10
Yeah,
yards,
no,
but
it don't matter.
and it was awesome. And my guide actually was a cameraman for Pat and Nicole on the Outdoor Channel, and
Okay.
I had all this camera equipment, doing self filming myself. I went up there by myself, which is I wish I'd have had some buddies to go with me,
Right, right,
and
right.
experience that kind of thing with me. But I was on. It was kind of like a lone wolf adventure by myself, which kind of made it cool because I was meeting all these other guys from the Carolinas and Kansas and all over the country, which is cool because everybody kind of has their own different mindset sometimes when it comes to whitetails. Like my mindset here in Indiana might be different than your whitetail setup in Pennsylvania, but we're still chasing the same thing. Well, hey, this didn't work for me today. Let's try something else. It was
Right.
just such a cool trip that I took.
Yeah, that's the key to the hunting trip. I mean, I've got friends from the trips I've taken, and I go to Kentucky every year to the same place and the same friends. It's like a reunion. You look forward to seeing those guys, and now we've gotten together outside of that. You're right, but that's a good guide. That's a good hunt, and that's what drew me to the places that I was in Alabama. And that guy actually retired, and unfortunately has passed since then.
Oh,
Where I went, and it was a small operation. He'd bring in 4 guys to hunt. That's it. Be 2 guides, and they would come and get you in the morning, and then they take you back out in the afternoon. But my buddy and I, we wanted to hunt all day, but they said we're not going to keep you in the same spot. We're going to come get you at 11 o'clock. We're going to send you a text. If you're seeing deer, we're not getting you. But if you're not, we're going to move you again.
mm-hmm.
So I got to hunt 3 different stands in a day, and like you said, they were paying attention to the wind and the whole thing. And they bring you lunch, all that stuff. You're right, and that's the same way it is down in Kentucky now. Is it's funny, the different philosophies down in Kentucky. We'll hunt the same stand at least 2 days because the guy actually, and it's worked for me. So I believe it. He believes that he's been watching those deer enough that he puts you there. He says, look, this buck is in here. These 2 bucks are in here. You got to give it 2 days. I don't want to put you in there one day because then I'm not going to hunt the stand for a couple of days. That buck came in the very next day and boom, no one's getting it.
Right.
So we hunt it 2 days. We hunt at least 2 days. And
What part of Kentucky is that you're
we're
going
all the
to?
way in Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Well, we're not far down near the Land Lakes area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Down. I guess would be what.
Was that like Lake Berkeley and all that?
Yeah, it's above that, but I guess we're 50 miles east of Paducah.
Mm-hmm.
We're real close. Not far from Tennessee
river.
border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was wondering because I got a couple buddies that listen to this. They're from down there in Kentucky, and then my neighbor and his buddies, they actually go down for the opener every year, and they hit some public land, and I do very well down there. They killed, I think, 5 does down there for the opener. But Kentucky seems like it's booming when it comes to whitetails.
They're healthy. They're good. I mean, I've had a good experience every time down there. And when I haven't gotten a buck, it's because I've passed on it because it wasn't mature. I've had the opportunity to go down in the second season muzzleloader and be successful. I've been successful archery hunting. It's River Valley Farms. KD's Kentucky, and it's fantastic.
What would you prefer going down there, early season, or do you like the late season better?
We've been the last I'm going to tell you the last 2 years I've killed some pretty nice bucks, and
awesome.
So I like the second the couple days of archery, and then we go right into rifle season. So it's the opening of rifle.
I got you. So
it's right around Veterans Days, typically when we're down there.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
You talk about Kentucky and you talked about Alabama. What's some other places that you've been?
Well, I'm in southern Pennsylvania, so I've hunted some Virginia down in George Washington Mountains. I've hunted West Virginia, some places just close enough near, let's say, Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Paw, West Virginia, and then I've gone all the way down into Buck Cannon area, Fear Now Forest, and did the full Monty there, where we put up tents in national forest and sleep in tents.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then wake up one morning, you got a foot and a half of snow, and you're not going to deer hunt. You're just trying to
Trying
get
to
out.
survive.
Hope you can dig a path to your truck, and your truck's not going anywhere anyway. So I've done that. Obviously, I've hunted Maine. I've actually did some Illinois hunting up around Beardstown. Uh,
Did you like Illinois? I feel like Illinois would be a great state to hunt. You see everything that
yeah,
happens in Illinois, but I don't like the price tag when it comes to out
yeah,
of state license.
I tell
I
you,
feel like they're just really bending you over on that kind of thing.
yeah, it's expensive. I
You're
mean,
talking about 500 to 700 somewhere right in
yeah,
there.
I mean, you're almost $1,000 into it, and you haven't gotten there yet. I mean, it's yeah,
Wow.
and it was shotgun hunt, and it was on some private land, small pot. We had 4 guys. One guy got a nice 10 point. The rest of us, I saw some big doe and stuff like that. The other thing is they're pretty strict up there. Um, when it comes to recording your deer and the whole thing. And I get all that, but
Right.
it's almost like if you're not taking care of that stuff the minute you shoot the dang thing, they're flying in with helicopters and the whole thing. And there's big deer up there.
Yeah.
Um,
There's no
I
doubt
didn't
about
personally
that.
I didn't personally get a buck. We've had people in our plan or did. But I think the price tag pretty much, it was 12 hours away from where I'm at, my little zone there. But I think the price tag pretty much took me out of that. I actually, one year we actually hunted Pennsylvania. Last day of rifle, went all the way down to Alabama, hunted down there, got deer and some coyotes, and then drove up to Illinois to do some late season shotgun. Weren't successful, and I mean, at one point we were riding home. We had 2 coyotes and 3 deer in the back of the truck on ice, and thinking, man, you know,
That's living right there,
pretty good living
right?
right there,
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about, setting up tents and, kind of having a little camp and whatnot on some
Right, right.
public and stuff. We've talked about doing that this year for Ohio. I have been just wanting to get in Ohio bad. It's close to where I live. I'm only about an hour from the Indiana Ohio line, so it wouldn't take me too long to get over there. It would be a quick trip. I feel like that's something that I would want to do. I'd want to find a campground somewhere, take some buddies, meet up with some people, have like a deer camp,
Right,
with
right,
tents
right.
and, or maybe like a little pop-up camper or something, and just explore some public, maybe push the limits a little bit, go deep, maybe not go deep, just like test the waters. And you never know, you might find some honey hole that, I mean, maybe somebody probably knows about, but you never know what you can stumble across, and
Yeah, I
maybe
don't,
just be at the right place at the right time and shoot a
yep.
giant.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Ohio. I mean, I'm 3 hours away. We've often talked about it, in southern Ohio and area. And
Right.
like you said, they're killing some massive deer there.
Yes, they are.
Just on Twitter, here recently they opened up, and man, I tell you what, they're the first 4 or 5 deer that were posted on the people I follow. They were all Ohio deers, and they were monsters. They were beasts, and they're not just big horn deer. They're big antler.
But
They're big deer.
yeah, they're big body. What is it like? South Central to
Yeah,
Southeast Ohio is like the
yeah.
main little golden
Yeah,
ticket
I'm trying
there.
to think. I'm trying to think of the counties. Now I'm thinking, is Trigg one of them?
I want to say Noble County was
Could
one
be.
of
I
them.
think there's a Franklin County that's big too.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah. And that'd be the thing. And the big research there, like in any of those places, when you do a public hunt, is finding all that public land, then looking at the access, then looking at like when we did stuff in West Virginia, where's the access? Because
right,
there are only 2 access points in this near Fear Now Forest we were going into,
right.
and they were 12 miles apart from each other. And then what are the camping restrictions? um,
Right.
and then be prepared. I mean, that's one of the things that we learned the hard way. I mean, there was one year we hunted and we weren't, thank goodness we had cars and trucks and stuff. We weren't ready. I mean, like I said, when it snowed and stuff, it just it's one of those things you can't go get it when you don't have it. But now we take everything with us.
Right. It's kind of a basic question, but you're talking about hunting all these places. What's your favorite? What would be your go-to if somebody was like, you're planning a trip this year, where we're going?
Wow. Well, I'm
That's a hard question, probably.
probably no. It's not a hard question. Well, I'd love to get back into Alabama. I really enjoyed it down there. I think the opportunities and stuff, but I have to think about that because a lot of that had to do with the guides I was with,
Mm-hmm.
the outfit I was with. But right now, hands down, going down to Western Kentucky, um, would be, it's my go-to. I mean, if somebody said, "Hey, you can't hunt PA this year, you can't do this," well, if I got Kentucky, and that's always the nice thing about it. I mean, it's been hit or miss here in PA for a while. We've gotten better because of the antler restrictions. We've gotten some bigger deer and stuff. But like last year, I didn't get a buck in Pennsylvania. Didn't see one that was legal. You have to have three on one side, and getting down to Kentucky and then seeing some hammer deer and being able to get one was good.
You
And
know,
that,
I had a guy on from Pennsylvania earlier in my podcast series, and he talked about some of the struggles that you can have when hunting Pennsylvania. You want to talk about that a little bit? Like, I know you guys can't hunt on Sundays.
Yeah, you
And,
can't hunt on Sundays. Archery season is good and long. The second season is what's frustrating to me. We have a second season after, like right after Christmas,
mm-hmm.
26th, they open up and they give you 2 weeks of second season, but it's archery and or flintlock. Uh, and I'd rather go out. And those guys that shoot flintlock, man, they got all my respect in the world. I've been on the shooting range and I've seen those guys. I mean, those guys that do it, they're good, and you hold it and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, I wish they'd turned it into muzzleloader. And I realize
Right.
muzzleloaders are getting more and more like rifles. But the opportunity, especially with the weather conditions. I mean, after Christmas, we get sometimes in January, and I'm sure like you guys do out there in Indiana, it gets cold.
Oh, it gets
And
brutal.
I'm telling you what, man, you're up in a tree and that wind's howling and you got a bow. I mean, that's
You got all those clothes on, and you're
yeah, it's just
constricted, and
everything
you're
you can do. You
cold.
give me a muzzle loader. I mean, like at least like, hey, I could get down on the ground if I wanted to if I have a muzzle loader. A little harder with archery, but it just seems like it takes away opportunity. It is a struggle. I think more and more public land is getting hunted real hard because more and more people are shutting people down on private land is what I've found.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who have hunted private land for years, and because of the money now involved that they can get in leases and stuff,
Right.
they're getting kicked off, and they're leasing out to people who may or may not hunt very long there, and it's farmland. And you get your bigger deer.
Right.
So some of that's happened. So I've seen the pressure on the game lands, the public land increase. Um, this year they've changed some things where they used to have it. I liked it back when they'd say buck season was buck season, and after that you can shoot doe. Now it's Katie bar the door, and I'll probably have a lot of haters on this one from Pennsylvania. and maybe one of the things I've never liked since the day I stepped in the field. Number one, I think it's very dangerous, and I've seen results of that. I've never, thank goodness, I've never seen anybody get shot or anything, but I've never understood driving deer. I have actually harvested a deer for the fact that I just felt sorry for the animal because it was wounded, that went through a drive. I mean, it just got peppered and it was still living. And I don't think we sometimes realize what it takes to put down an animal.
Right.
And I've taken the deer, and I'm not trying to be some mercenary or anything there, but I mean, I just wish they'd get rid of the drive, because the sad part is what happens now is after the first day, everybody always sits the first day. And
then they're not patient enough,
and then they're not patient for the second day, the third day, and then all of a sudden you see guys driving up and down the road, and next thing you know, it's 20 guys getting out in orange, and they're lining up on the pipeline, and everybody's walking through the woods, hipping and hooing and hollering and yelling, and you're like, it's done. What do I do now? Even the deer. The only advantage you have is if you're up in a tree. Sometimes they've kicked up some deer, and you get a shot at them that they don't even know they kicked them up. But it just
right.
It goes back to what I said way back in the beginning. Nothing like waking up in the morning and having the sun come down on you and just enjoying nature.
Right.
You can't do that when people are whistling and hollering and going, "Whoo!"
Yeah, it sounds like it can be a rough situation up there, and the way I
I
had
just
it
never liked
explained, yeah, I wouldn't like that either. But
And that's the way they hunt bear too. And to be honest with you,
really,
well, yeah, because you
that's
can't bait.
crazy.
And to be honest with you, I understand that when it comes to bear season. I mean, bear travel 25, 30 miles in one thing, and I've got bears on my trail camera that I've never seen during the hunting season. I mean, I get them in the spring and the fall, and all of a sudden I don't see them. But you march a bunch of guys across there, you can kick some bears and so forth up, and maybe people are going to say, well, that's not right. You can't like it for bear season. but I don't know. It just seems unsafe to me. I've only
Yeah.
ever been in draw as a young man. I was involved in 2 drives. And of course, I was always, because I was young, I was always the dog walking through the
Right.
woods. But you get these guys on the. I'm thinking, man, there's guys that are actually shooting across these pipelines, and you're shooting at a deer. One of the first things to tell you, identify your target, but then look beyond your target. You know,
Absolutely.
and man, I don't know, and I'm
I want to have somebody on talk kind of the same similar
yeah,
thing. I want to have somebody on here to have a conversation with me. I know it has a lot to do with heritage, but I
yes,
want to have somebody on here to talk to me about running dogs on these deer, like
oh
down
yeah,
Virginia, the Carolinas, and some other places. I'm not mad at anybody on anything. I just want to understand it because where I'm from, they don't have that kind of thing. So I know some people get super bent out of shape about it. What
yep,
I don't think I would personally like it. I would like to check the dogs out and see how they do it. I think it would be kind of unsafe, like what you're talking. These guys are driving up and down roads and shooting across roads and all kinds of stuff. I find it super unsafe. Plus, these dogs are probably pushing deer on other people's property when you may have somebody up in a tree stand over here doing the right thing and you're ruining their hunt. You know what I mean? And
happened to me in Virginia.
trespassing. Really?
Yeah, yeah, these guys. I was in the woods, and also I just heard this barking coming. I was like, "Oh my goodness, here they come!" And it's part of the reason, And then again, that's like I said, not right or wrong, just not my
Right.
way of hunting.
Absolutely.
And to me, my hunt's busted. And some people would say, "Well, no, you're not. Stay in the tree. That deer may circle back around." We've all had that happen. People have had that happen too. I've had that happen when people have driven through the field or driven through the woods for deer hunting, and then you're sitting there, and a half hour later, you look over and there's a buck. He must have been bedded down. They walked right past him.
Right.
It wasn't never a buck I wanted to shoot. But yeah, I think that'd be a good podcast because I think you need to really, because there are people, what you just described, I don't know if that happens everywhere. Because I know once I experienced dog hunting with bears,
Mm-hmm.
it really was an art to it. These guys that were
Right.
doing it was really an art to it, and they were actually guys that came up from West Virginia, and you have and the law is you have to have a state a resident Maine guide doing it. So I was just riding along with the resident Maine guide watching,
Mm-hmm.
and actually ended up riding along with one of the guys that had the dogs and just learning so much about it. But that's how they hunt the bears, and that's there was an art to it, and the dogs were the relationship they had. It was different, and of course there you're treeing a bear.
Right.
So it's not like you can't tree a deer, and if you do,
Right.
that's a different deer than we've all been hunting. But yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing because I've never understood it. I know it busted my hunt when I was in Virginia, and
Yeah, I
I'm
think it's
not going to
just
say that's
something that
why I don't.
I would like them to explain it to me
Yeah,
because, like I said, I'm not hating on anybody. Just like we were talking about before, with people buck shaming kids and stuff
right,
on
right,
social media. Like I've seen that on social media too. You're not a good hunter if you're chasing
right,
them down with
right,
dogs and blah
right,
blah
right,
blah.
right.
Which is it's probably just something that they grew up doing. Their daddy and their granddaddy and everybody was probably doing it. And when you talk about art form, I've been around that. I've been around a lot of waterfowl dogs, and I can understand the thought process behind that. But I just want to have a conversation. Hopefully, they wouldn't take it negative on some of the questions that I
No, I
would be
think that
asking them.
right. If they're positive about it, they should be saying they should be wanting to find a way to promote it. I mean, that
Absolutely.
this is why we do it. It's I'm sure it goes beyond heritage and there's skill to it. And let's face it, they're running deer just like they run bear, and you don't always get them. I mean, that's so yeah. I've never got it. I like the solitude and the silence of buck hunting.
Right.
I like it to be me against the animal. Maybe I'm outsmarting it, and he's probably outsmarting me, and maybe I'm just getting lucky one time out of the
Just
year.
like you were talking about earlier with your tests and everything with the main stuff, you like the challenge. You like
Yeah,
to put yourself in a precise situation. I played the win today. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. He's been on camera in here with us, doing this and this and this. And you're putting yourself in that opportunity, and then you still have to be able to pull it off if he comes in because you never know he could be at 15 yards and you just don't have a shot. You know what I mean? There's
right.
just so many circumstances that have to play out for you to be successful. And that's the thing I love most about bow hunting in general.
Yeah, and like you get a targeted deer, like you start getting stuff on camera, and you say, there's the buck I'd like to harvest, and so you truly hold out. I mean, you're passing on bucks. You're hoping to get that buck, and that's sometimes you go home and you don't compromise. And again, you're trying to outsmart it. What's the deal? And the X factor, of course, you're hoping for rut season to where he's
Right.
going to lose his brains, and you're going to get him anyway.
Right. When he loses his brain a little bit, and he's not on top of his game, and you're on top of yours, you can pull it
Exactly.
off. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. But yeah, you're right.
All right. So let's dive into these whitetails a little bit.
All right.
I know
Let's
we're
do
here
it.
already at an hour, but
Yeah.
we're gonna keep going
I don't want to
anyways.
bore nobody, man.
No, I'm sure there's people that would listen to this in a heartbeat. So,
No, I appreciate it. I do, Brett. I do. This is
oh,
good
dude, I'm
stuff.
loving this conversation. It's great. I think we're gonna get great feedback on it.
Good.
Uh,
I'm loving it, man. I hope let's do
Absolutely.
it again.
We're
I
going to
say do
have
it
you
again.
on.
Yeah.
I could probably stop the show right now and bring you back on to talk about these whitetail tactics, but I feel like it's going pretty good, so we'll just
Okay.
keep
Let's
going.
do it.
Or maybe just do a couple and we'll come back and
We
do
can do
some
that. We can
different
do that.
later.
And hey, let's tell you what. We'll make this. We'll check in because, like I told you, Veterans Day. I'll be going down to Kentucky, so maybe we can do something before
Yeah,
or
I'll
do something
bring you
afterwards or
back on. You
whatever.
can tell me about Kentucky, how it
Yeah.
all played out and
Hey,
everything.
if I can get it hooked up with my laptop and stuff, maybe we can even do it down there.
Oh, that'd be really cool, and maybe I can have.
You,
Sometimes I have co-hosts with me, the guys that hunt. We all hunt together. There's probably about 5 or 6. I wouldn't say five. We'll say five tops that hunt together and
right.
help each other film and stuff. Like I've actually missed a couple calls while we're standing here. I think somebody shot something because my phone went off
Oh
about
man.
50 times. But scouting, preseason scouting. What exactly is your game plan, or what do you try to do preseason, spring, summer that pays off for you in the end?
Well, I tell you, the first thing I do is I go back to this the season before.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think the postseason. I go
Right.
back to the season before, and we had kind of talked about this before the show even started. But I take notes in the woods and and write things down, and so I go back to that and look at, okay, am I going to hunt the same area next year? Am I going to adjust a little bit? You know, I had my tree stand here, but all the deer were 60 yards down here that way, and I felt real confident staying there. So I missed my opportunity. Do I want to shift my stand? Do I want to do those things? So I look at that stuff first. Then I take a walk in the woods, and look for foliage sign, feed, and that kind of thing, natural feed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the game changer today is the inexpensive of cameras and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you just start placing some cameras on some trails and try to stay out of the woods. I mean, I try to give it a 4-week span, and come
Yeah.
back in real quick and easy and get out, uh, and take a look at what's on camera and then make a game plan from that. I mean, that's preseason. That's what I kind of get an idea and look at that map I have of the area and where I have the great part is years ago, I got a GPS, an old Garmin GPS, and I still use it. It's probably outdated, but I still use it. It takes 2 AA batteries, and I can actually download the map, and I have the map, and then I have where my stands are, so I can
That's
look at,
cool.
do I want to adjust them? And I think it's good to do some stand movement.
Oh,
I
absolutely,
think we don't
absolutely.
realize that deer can get, I think the first clue is when the deer walks in, you see him looking right at it. It's like,
Yeah, right. I
I
think
think
you
they know
learn a
it's there.
lot. I think you learn a lot postseason, more than people I think give it credit for. They just want to run their cameras 2 to 3 months before season, or maybe just a month before season. Or you see a lot of guys that really don't even do that. Oh, deer hunting's coming in next weekend. I probably ought
Yeah.
to go put some stands and cameras out.
Yeah.
But you do learn so much in postseason. Like we have a couple new properties that's new to us that Ryan picked up, and we left our spy points out later on in the season. We had actually kind of wanted to do some coyote hunting out there, so we wanted to see
Right.
what was out there because there had been quite a bit out there. And all of a sudden, a couple of these bucks are showing up. We're like, where in the hell did these bucks come from? We haven't seen these bucks all season. And all of a sudden they're in there because they're hitting certain crops that's close to where we're at. And some of it was still standing later on. I don't know exactly why the corn was never taken out,
Right.
but
Right.
it was a super hide from them because I'm sure there was some kind of hunting pressure somewhere close to where we were at. We don't really know because we really only hunted it a few times when we're very successful. We're there. My buddy Ryan, he killed 100. He actually just sent me the certificate earlier. He got it in the Indiana book. It's 152 and 5/8 or something.
Oh, okay.
8-pointer,
Nice.
huge. I mean, it's a
Nice.
giant 8-pointer, and just we had success there, obviously with him killing that, and had some doe success in there too. But we learned so much later on that I don't think we hunted it enough to really get a. You're not going to get a great feel for some of these properties until you've hunted them for several years. Just like
Absolutely.
and then now we hunted it last week. Saw some does. We're kind of in doe mode right now. We wanted to we like to get our does out of the way, our meat out of the way,
Okay.
so we can focus on some of these bucks that we're chasing. Which some people look at it the other way around. They'd rather
Sure.
kill the buck and then go after the does. But we have properties where we're like, we're not shooting does on this property, and then we have properties that's like, okay, boys, how many tags you got? Because we're smoking
Right.
does today.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I was just curious on the PA thing. So, are you hunting public land, or you have private land that you're hunting?
It's a combination. We were we well practically all my life up until about 2011. I was hunting game lands, and then I actually was friends for about 25 years, and that gentleman's passed away, and he has a farm. But 2011, we had a pretty bad snowstorm, and I pulled in to see him, and he just looked at me and said, you don't go up in the mountain, just go hunt my property." I was like, well, "Okay."
Awesome.
So it kind of stayed that way, and I was lucky enough to kill a nice 10 point, and uh, he had 130 acres, butts up against the state game lands. Like I said, he since has passed. They since have come in and clear cut the woods in the area, and he did have 30 acres in field, but so it's a combination. We access the game lands through his property,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of gives us exclusivity to that game lands, because the only way to get to it otherwise is about 10 miles down the road and walk a logging road up. So we've kind of isolated ourselves a little
Kind
bit.
of
No, we don't see
landlocked.
too many people come in that way because they're not going to come to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of hunting. I'm hunting public land, but I'm accessing it through private land, and that's just because he's been gone now 3 years, and some of the relatives and stuff that have the farm, they're starting to bring their young kids in and bow hunt that area, and
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. All we asked for was access,
Right.
and but we're hunting the same deer. We all know that.
Right.
So yeah.
You got a hit list put together. You got some bucks that you're chasing this year.
I tell you, it's been skinny this year. Now, I will say this: last year, uh, my lifelong hunting buddy got access to a farm that is literally 10 minutes away from me,
Nice.
and we are hunting a 20-acre patch of woods in the middle of alfalfa cornfield, barley, all that stuff that they plant. Right now, it's in corn, and they haven't picked it. He killed a monster buck that actually had a broken off side. And I had a target buck that sucker just never came to me. And it was, I can be honest with you. I told him, I said, if I get this deer, I don't even know why I'm going to Kentucky. It was, and it's a farm deer. So we have that property. Now we have some deer there that we've been seeing. There's a 6 point in there that is a mature deer, and it's got real flat horns, what's that palomade type. It's
Palm.
just palmade. It's just a beautiful looking rack, interesting rack, and he's an old deer. You can see his belly and his neck's big.
Mm-hmm.
So I've kind of put that as a target deer in the mountains where we hunt. It's been skinny. I don't know. We are actually in my area. We are in the CWD. They've increased the tags, all that stuff. We're just not. Last year, I did not see a shooter buck. I had some spikes, a couple 4 points, really young deer. I mean, young.
Are the genetics pretty good in that area, or is it something where like maybe it gets hunted too hard and it just doesn't have that time to kind of get things going again?
I think the genetics are hit or miss. There are some big deer there, but I don't. I think, yeah. I'm trying to get better at the genetic part of the deer hunt. I
Mm-hmm.
think I've been reading a lot about culling deer and all that stuff, and there's people who believe in it, don't believe in it.
Right.
Um, but we're just not seeing the mature bucks, and I don't know if it's because they're smarter and they're just staying out of the area. Again, topography's changed where we're hunting. It's clear cut, so it's kind of, instead of it turned into a go-to place, it's kind of been a pass-through browse place, and we're getting a lot of doe, not a lot of bucks. It's what is it, October 12th? We haven't even
Yeah.
found a scrape or a rub yet. I don't know what you've found.
I have not
Uh,
found a scrape. We've found a couple of rubs. We have not found a scrape. Actually, I think I talked about it on my last podcast. I have a property that I've hunted for 18 years, and it was pretty much the same those 18 years. Incredible property. And it switched some hands. They've done some things. We got some livestock in there now. And I had this one tree that had a community scrape on it for the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, that you could it looked like a semi hood. It gets
Right.
so big,
Right.
and they cut the tree down. And I mean, when I say this tree is one of the biggest, it looks like something in California or something like
Right.
the
Right.
national forest. And I haven't found any sign in there whatsoever. Actually, I hunted it last Saturday and didn't see a thing. And it almost makes me sick to my stomach because these people probably don't know what they have. Obviously, they're trying to live off of maybe raising the sheep and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
which I
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
It's not my property; it's theirs. They have the right to do whatever they want with it. But I think they could almost lease this place or had like an outfitter. I mean, it's only 40 acres. I know that doesn't sound very big,
No, that
but this
I'd love to
place
have 40 acres like that.
produces the biggest bucks around. I mean,
Oh, you
everybody
mean?
knows this property that knows anything about kind of the area we live. Like I have guys at work. Well, where were you hunting? Well, I got a place in Hancock County. Oh, Hancock County. It's like Hancock County just they grow some big deer. I don't know what the genetics is around here, but they grow some big deer. Like we had one last year. We call him Mike Tyson. He's one of the biggest bodied deer I've ever seen in my life. Like he was pushing 180 inches last year.
Wow.
I believe he probably would have gotten a little bit bigger. He was probably in the 6-year-old range last
Right.
year,
Right. Right.
and I haven't had a picture of him at all this year on that property. I think he's actually on the other side of the county road, which I don't have permission on, which I wish I did. It's a grumpy guy that lives in there. He lives on probably 70 or 80 acre woods, and I've asked before, and he gets all grumpy about it. So I can't go in there, and I know that he's at the back of this woods. Like I just know that deer is living on the backside of that woods because there's no pressure on it whatsoever, and he's got food all around. He's got water. He's got everything that this deer
Oh, hey,
needs to survive. That's where he's at. I know that's where he's
sanctuary.
at.
Sanctuary.
Absolutely,
You
but
want a sanctuary? Yep.
right, but it just our hit list went from I actually two of my three hit list bucks last year got killed on the same day. Like I can't even make this up, man. Like these number, I think it was my number two shooter. We called him John Daly because he was on this camera every single day, unless we hunted it, and then he wasn't there, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
uh, a young lady was fortunate enough to take him on a neighboring property. Great buck. I think he scored 145 or something like that. And then I had another buck that had a unicorn point. Wasn't the biggest deer, but he had this big unicorn point in the middle of his brow tines. I was like, I want to shoot that buck. And a youth hunter was fortunate enough to take him, which I can't complain about that either. Getting a young kid in the outdoors,
Oh, absolutely.
congratulations. That's a awesome and a very unique deer. And then this Mike Tyson he lives in my brain, but I haven't seen him in almost a year, which is driving me nuts because I know nobody killed him. If somebody killed this deer, I would know it because it would be like
Right.
the
Right.
talk of the deer hunting world around me because he was a monster. But those hit list bucks give me many sleepless nights. Let's just say.
Oh, absolutely. Because and again, it goes back to that's why I like the hunting that way. I'm not. I don't ditch. I'm not ditching. I just one of those things I don't like that practice of driving because again, if you got a hit list buck and then everybody comes walking through your property,
Right.
hit list buck, he's gone. Uh, it's yeah. I mean, we got some deer on camera that we're looking at on this farm property. You said about 40 acres. Hey, we're hunting a 20 acre wooded plot that
Right.
that is basically around, and the guy hasn't cut the corn yet. So they're in there. They're not even showing up on camera, and we know they didn't get killed last year, other than the one that my buddy shot. But I mean, as far as on the public land, I don't know, man. And you said that about they cut down that tree. It's ironic, and I'll share it with you off. I got some pictures of some really beautiful buck on this property that I hunt up in PA
Mm-hmm.
on the game lands because there was a logging road and there was a community scrape and rub. And I put a camera right on it. I had bear on there, coyotes, bobcats. It told us every buck that was coming onto the property. 2 years ago, I killed a nice 8-point in the last day of archery season. And guess what they did last year? They clear cut. Guess what? Scrape and rub tree is no longer there.
Right.
So again, I think we're going into year 2 where they changed the pattern of the deer, and we're not seeing those bucks. And I could count on it. At least gave me an inventory of what bucks were on there. And I can honestly say that years past, I would see those bucks. They might be 60, 70, 80 yards away, but I saw them. Heck, one year, actually, it was October 16th. I'll never forget it. 7:30 in the morning. I'm looking, and I look over, and I look under. There's a pine tree, and I said, "Oh my God, look at that! There's a buck. There's another one. There's another one." I had never in my life experienced a bachelor group.
Yeah.
And there was 4 bucks hanging out together, and then busting through them came the big one.
Oh boy.
60 yards away. There I am sitting with my bow, and I'm thinking, somebody come close to me, please. I'm taking somebody. And ironically, it was a piebald buck, an 8-point.
Oh wow.
That I didn't get him archery season. First day of rifle season, pouring down rain, convinced my buddy he had gotten a buck during archery season. I said, "You got to take the camera. You got to videotape." It's pouring down rain. It stops raining, and up comes this piebald buck. Beautiful hide. I got the hide tan.
Oh,
boom.
Awesome.
I shoot him. I look over at my buddy. I'm going, "All right, did you get that?" He looked at me and goes, "No, I didn't turn the camera on." Are you kidding me, man?
Yeah, I have kind of have a similar story. I was telling you about Ryan shooting that giant 8-pointer last year.
Right.
So it was our opening weekend of gun here in Indiana. We hunted Saturday. Saturday night he has a wedding. I hunted someplace else. Well, Sunday they told us straight up on the weatherman, he says we're having hurricane force winds. It's not even going to be raining down. It's going to be raining sideways for the whole day. Right. And I was thinking, I think I'm good on that. I think I'll just sleep in. So I told him, I said, I'm sleeping in. I'm not going to go sit in a tree stand with 60-mile-an-hour wind, buddy. You can have all you want,
That's a smart plan.
And he says, well, I might just drive over there about noon and glass some fields and see what I see. Oh, that's cool. He goes down there, sits. They have like this shelter type of deal up on top of this ridge by the farmhouse, and they have like swings in it where they can swing and kind of watch the bottom. It's a big river bottom. He said, I just kind of hunkered down up underneath that shelter. Next thing you know, he looks down, and that buck chases a doe into the field right in front of him. I'm like, that's the first time, and that was second weekend in November. That's the first time that he had hunted all year where I wasn't the cameraman behind him. And it just happens like that. You just, of course, I wasn't with him when he shoots it after I'd spent 2 months, chasing these deer with him.
Well, henceforth, that's why I got the Tacticam after that, because I don't have to rely on anybody else.
Right. I get an enjoyment. I don't even have to have the bow in my hand. I have such fun chasing these deer with my buddy, just being behind the camera and capturing everything.
Well, if my buddy watches this, he's going to hate this story because the year I got the buck, archery season, I came with the sound. I said, look, I'm taking the camera. This is 2 years. I said, I'm going to sit in the tree stand with you. And we went down in the week before, set the tree stand up and everything. And he was on this side and I'm facing this way. I saw a shooter 8-point and a shooter 6-point, big, wide 6-point. He couldn't see him from his angle.
Oh, man.
I'm like, 8-point. Where? I got the camera. No. And then all of a sudden down over the ridge coming 6 point.
It's fun kind of going through those, those motions with your buddy, you're talking about these stands. Are you more of a mobile hunter where you're going in these places with a climber or a lock on with some sticks, or is it something that you've preset and you're going and sitting preset hang-ons or ladder stands?
Years ago, I gave up lock-ons. I just, to me, it was, and people who love lock-ons, that's fantastic, man. Carrying in the steps, and the setup. And now I realize once you get the setup, it's beautiful.
Right.
I actually have a better time just carrying a ladder stand in. So I actually have some ladders, but then I do have my Summit climber, and that's where I've gotten smarter over the years, where I'll set up my ladders. But if I see deer moving, then the next day I'm taking the climber and you're moving.
Right.
My first tree stands were the climbers, and that's how you did it. But I moved over into the ladder stands because I found myself, taking the climber, locking it in on the game lands, and then leaving it there and coming back the next week hunting the same tree anyway. I tell you something that I really want to investigate is this harness hunting that people are
Yeah,
doing.
saddles.
Saddle hunting.
I would love to try that out myself.
I'm having a hard time getting my eyes wrapped around it. Where you're facing a tree and they're telling you all this stuff, and but at the same time, the videos I watch, the people talk about them, and they're just praising the heck out of it. And
Yeah,
if anybody
everybody
can
that
do it,
I've kind of interacted with, because I kind of put it out there on social media for asking kind of
right, right,
suggestions on it and stuff. I'm kind of a bigger guy. I'm pushing over 250 pounds. Is that something that it's gonna be comfortable for somebody that's as big as I am? The platform of it's not very big. I understand that the harness that you're wearing is kind of adjustable, where you're not gonna be leaning straight back or
yeah,
whatever the case might be. But I'm actually a fan of lock-ons. We, for the
yep,
most
that's
part,
good.
we can be mobile with them if need be.
Right,
But most of
right,
our setups have been, like I was talking about, being precise
mm-hmm.
in certain areas. You know, it's so nice, and I know that it can probably screw us too. But these, we're up, we're set up.
Yep.
And
Well, that's
we
why I do
try to
ladders.
be you try to be use the same trail somewhat. We
Mm-hmm.
like to have a route in where we don't think it's going to be messing up what we're doing.
Right.
But it's so nice to go in, go up, be ready. I mean, I'm not going to be in there 5 minutes before shooting light. I'm going to be in there a half hour to 45 minutes before we
Right.
can shoot,
Right.
because I'm setting the camera up and all that stuff. But
Well, if it's anything, the last 2 years in Kentucky, I harvested two nice deer, and they were out of a lock on. So,
there you
but I
go.
didn't. And I think my thing with the lock on is it's just, to me, it's like a ladder stand. Man, I slap that stuff together. Boom, it's up. You strap it in. You go. There's a lot of work involved in the lock ons, and maybe I've just gotten lazy being an old man. I don't know. I just, I just. But yeah, I'll hunt out of them. You want to put them up? I'm hunting out of them. And there is an advantage, because if your ladder's only 15, you can get those up 20, 25 feet.
Right.
Um, like a climber, they're there. But also, again, laziness. There's times I've taken my climber in, you lock it in, you leave it down at the bottom of the tree. But like you said, you're climbing that tree, and then you're all hot and sweaty,
Oh
and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. That's the nice thing about a lock on. I get it. I think my crux is more with the setup, the setup and just getting in there, and it's just, that's just
I
me.
love my climber. I have the Summit Viper
Yeah, I think
something
it's, yep,
360 or
yep,
whatever the
yep.
hell the number is
Oh,
on it.
Summit.
But
I mean, advertisement at Summit. They're to me, they're great.
oh, absolutely. Like I was gonna say, that it's comfortable. It's very comfortable. I think I've even fallen asleep in it before.
Oh, that's a good sleeping stand.
Absolutely. I got the surround seat. It's just like a
Yeah,
lazy boy up
it's
in the
it's a good
tree.
sleeping stand. That's one of those, when you hunt all day and you realize it's 11 o'clock and you're probably not going to see anything. It's okay to go ahead and
Great.
go to
Oh
sleep.
yeah, that's a great snoozing stand.
Yeah.
But the thing I don't like about my climber is, I have a big backpack that I'm bringing,
Right.
my camera equipment and stuff, and I find it hard. I actually have to put that backpack in between, or like in the seat of my climber as the climber's put together, and then I ratchet it all together, and I wouldn't say it's the lightest thing that I've ever carried into the woods sometimes. And you're
Oh,
talking getting hot and sweaty, and I get to the stand, it's 30 degrees, and you can just see the steam rolling off of me.
yeah. When you're carrying all that stuff in, yeah, that's. And I'm sure if you guys do your lock-ons, you're probably putting the stuff in the tree and just leaving that there, and then
No,
you
I actually take my
take all
my
that out.
camera base every time.
Wow. Okay.
Actually, you would be quite surprised how fast I can be set up with the camera.
Oh, I'm
Like
sure.
like I
Once you
leave
do it.
my camera, the bag that my camera's in, I leave it
Mhm.
on the ground with my hoist, and I get up in there. I go up, I set the camera base, I put the arm on it with the fluid head, I pull the camera up, put the camera on, hang the bag, I'm ready to go.
Man.
And actually, we upgraded a little bit this year. We have a GoPro as a secondary view of what's going on. So, you got the main footage from my big
Right.
camera,
Right.
and then I have this GoPro that I have mounted to my arm. So it even moves a little bit, but I have it tilted down, and you're like looking above whoever's hunting. So I have a video that I posted last week of our experiences from the first week of archery here in Indiana, and we have a bachelor group that comes through, and they went almost directly underneath us. And then when they come in, I switch that camera to the GoPro, or in the video, I switch it to the GoPro, and you see him standing there with his bow, and the deer are walking right underneath us. It's just a very cool angle, secondary angle to have,
Sure,
you know.
sure. That's good stuff.
It's pretty fun. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a lot of work, like you said, with the editing and dealing with all that kind of stuff. But I really do enjoy it. And then to add this podcast in here with it, I really enjoy doing all of it. It's going on 10:30, and here we are still talking about deer. We said we were going
well,
to keep it under an hour. We're going an
well,
hour and a half.
yeah, well, that's unfortunate. I get to be wordy at times. I could talk about it all day.
Oh,
Thank
me
goodness,
too,
we
man.
don't have a couple beers. It'd be midnight.
Absolutely. We might have to do that next time.
All right.
But we'll go ahead and we'll cut it off
All
now.
right.
I'll save this sheet here. I save all my show notes, and I'll get some of these other questions. I have like some rut tactics and some late season tactics and some other questions, and pick your brain a little bit. But we'll bring you back on after the Kentucky hunt. You can tell us all about that. We can dive in some more of these topics. Hopefully, I have some stories to tell as well.
Absolutely.
But tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Well, you can get me on Outdoor Answer on Twitter. Um, and you can go to the YouTube page. I'll get there sometime.
We need to petition YouTube
Yeah,
to get
I
your
don't know, man.
stuff revised.
Somebody told me I should be able to get a hold of somebody. So it's one of these points I'm going to. But it's funny. Somebody goes, "Well, they should know it's you." I mean, yeah, that's the picture, and I can send them ID verification. But yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm trying to follow as many hunters as possible. Nowadays on Twitter, it's a little tough because everybody's juiced up about everything. So
Right.
I got to watch myself because I get drug into that too. And it's like, man, can't we all just get along? And that probably is the hardest question of the day, right there.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming
No,
on.
I
We'll
appreciate it.
definitely get you back on here. But everybody, thanks for if you're still watching. Hopefully, you're still watching. It's a great conversation. Hit the subscribe button for us. Check us out: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, just about anywhere you can find us. You can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, all those things. But I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll definitely bring Jim back on after he gets done hunting in Kentucky, and we'll get it all figured out. But thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.
Thanks, Brett.